Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And PFL Madrid is here. We've got Fabian Edwards taking on Van Steenis in the main event. And as always, your boys here on the Ground and Pound podcast are going to break the whole thing down, starting off in the early prelims, heading to the main event. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
We're going to break these ones down, and we're going to start off in the early prelims here. And first up at PFL Madrid, we've got Victoria Dudakova taking on Jacinta Austin. Carlos, who you got in this opening bout?
I'm going to go with Austin in this one. She's very technical everywhere the fight goes. Defensively, she keeps a high guard. She parries punches well, mixes all of her offense, feels comfortable anywhere the fight plays out. Dudakova's tough, though, and she does have fast hands. I think maybe she has the faster hands of the two. Has a hard straight right, which will be very dangerous if Jacinta Austin isn't defensively sound and doesn't mind her P's and Q's. It comes in and thinks it's going to be easy because she's better. I think she's a better striker on the feet. She's just more technical. Dudakova, she can get takedowns, but she kind of just bulls into the takedown, doesn't have a lot of finesse, a lot of technique to it. But on the ground, I think Austin could possibly reverse position in the scrambles and end up on top. And Austin may have, just a bit of an advantage on the ground compared to Dudakova. So I don't know if that's exactly what Dudakova would like to do. But in the eyes of the judges, I think on the feet, she's probably going to land more. It's not going to be the bigger shots. It's just going to be a little bit more combination, touch. But I think Dudakova is probably going to land the harder shots if she lands, because she does swing really hard. And I do think Austin can land with precision. And I think in the clinch, she could probably control Dudakova up against the cage if it gets there. And on the ground, I think she could do enough to scramble, get to a better position. So I'm going to take Austin to get it done.
Yeah, I was actually surprised here that Jacinta Austin looked as good as she did on tape. I was expecting this to kind of be a little bit of a setup fight for the former UFC fighter coming into the PFL. They tend to give those fighters some easy layups to kind of feed off that name as a household name in MMA. But Austin looks decent. I think on the feet, she looks very measured, as Carlos mentioned, very composed. And we've seen with Victoria Dudakova, she carries power early. I think she can be a little bit wild on the feet, but her kryptonite is her getting taken down and controlled. And I think she slows down as fights goes on as well. As the fight gets into the late second and third round, she tends to slow. So I think Austin can do a good job here of kind of pacing herself throughout the course of 3 rounds, staying very composed, looking to counter as Dudakova gets overzealous on the feet. And I agree with Carlos as well. I think Austin, if this fight does hit the mat, that I think she's going to be a little bit better in the grappling. I think she can reverse top position. She's more of a kickboxer that kind of pitter-patters out at range and really just times her shots. She doesn't, kind of throw in combinations. She's really just looking for her openings and staying composed. And I think realistically, if this fight does get into the clinch, she also has a nice outside foot trip that she likes to use. She gets the double underhooks, and she'll just trip you, take you to the mat with very little effort, and ultimately get on top, where she's just really positionally sound. So there's nothing that really stands out here for Austin as far as her skill set. It's really just her capitalizing on different moments. She doesn't rush anything. And I think Victoria Dudakova at times, she does do exactly that. She rushes positions. She gets overzealous. And I think in this fight against Austin, it will probably be a downfall. So 2 here for Jacinta Austin here. And I wouldn't be surprised if she was the underdog based on the name value in Dudakova. So she might be a worthy underdog here to bet on in PFL Madrid this week. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got David Mora taking on Claudio Pacella. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I like the aggression of Pacella, and I think that he's fought probably like a little bit better of the competition. He's won some, lost some in those fights. And most of that is based on pressure and output, volume, because he's going to come, he's going to swing. And even if he's dead tired, you can't tell he's swinging for his life at the end of the fight, just as hard as he is at the beginning. But I'm going to go with Mora to get it done. And one of the reasons being is that Mora, he does fight in bare knuckle, been fighting in MMA for a while too, and he kind of deals with people that are just coming at him as pretty much the same style as Pacella, and he tends to land shots down the middle where the guys are swinging a little wild and a little awkward, and looping. And that's kind of what Pacella likes to do. So I don't necessarily know if that volume and that pressure from Pacella is going to make a difference, because I feel when he's doing it, Mora is going to land shots down the middle. And Pacella's not trying to grapple. He's even in the clinch, he's not really trying to stay there. He's not trying to get it to the ground. He's just trying to swing and throw a lot of output. So I'm going to take Mora. He's probably going to land harder 1-2s down the middle, maybe some short hooks. And I think in the judge's eyes, that'll probably look like he's more effective.
Give me Pacella here, man. A little bit of dissension. I wasn't really impressed with Mora. Maybe Carlos watched some different tape that I did, but David Mora, to me, obviously competing over in bare knuckle. When you think of the bare knuckle fighters, they're guys that stand in front of you, wide base, really want to land power shots, technical boxing, and ultimately guys that are tough, gritty, and in your face. And when I watch tape on Mora, he's dancing around on the outside. He gets taken down. He closes his guard. I didn't really like what I saw from him. And I think in a guy like Pacella with his heavy forward pressure, his aggression, and his wild shoot, kind of overhand rights and hooks to the body that he likes to throw, and also his ability to mix in takedowns are going to cause Mora a lot of problems here. I think him dancing around on the outside really had me kind of confused based on what he is in terms of his bare knuckle career. And when I've watched him in MMA, I think he does have nice kicks from the outside, but he's kind of the opposite of what I was expecting. And I think out of the two, I think Pacella's forward pressure here is going to be everything in this fight. I think it's going to look good in the eyes of the judges. Pacella's also shown in previous fights that he will mix in grappling. And when you go back to his split decision loss to Chizov, in that fight, Chizov is a guy that uses all 8 weapons, and Mora is a guy that tends to only throw the hands and occasional kicks. So I think, as long as Pacella's on his P's and Q's, I think he's tough. I think he's durable. As long as he minds those kicks, and I think if he overwhelms Mora, he can get a takedown here, control him, beat him up on the ground. And I think ultimately backing him up the entire time is going to be what's going to get him the decision here, or land one of those big overhand rights for Mora's chin to eat. So give me Claudio Pacella here with a bit of dissension here in this bout. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Ernesto Schisano taking on Reda Abdellaoui. Carlos, that was a mouthful. Who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Abdellaoui in this one because, I think that with the height and reach advantage, Schisano's a little short, he's stocky, and he wants to come inside, and he wants to land those heavy hooks on the inside. And I haven't seen much of his takedown defense, just a bit. And as an amateur, he would, those are his losses, or once he gets to the ground, he gets the submission, and somebody will get the submission on him. I mean, and, which leads me to believe that part of his game that he's lacking. And so that's why I'm going to take Abdellaoui. He's looking to get this fight to the ground. Has stoppages by strikes as an amateur. You never know the caliber of person you're fighting as an amateur, but who can take a shot at all. But he has some at amateur, and he has some pro wins by ground and pound. And I feel like he's going to be able to probably just blanket Schisano, when they get close, and get this fight to the ground. And standing, I think he'll probably be like, good enough to hang with him and keep him from getting inside. And if he gets inside, wrap him up, try to clinch him, get some underhooks, overhooks, and just try to, get him to the ground. So I think the more the distance closes, Abdellaoui's going to have to keep a high guard and, wait to see if he can get type of foot sweep or some trips or something. So I'm gonna take Abdellaoui in this one.
Yeah, 2 for Abdellaoui here. I was reasonably impressed with him. 24 amateur fights before he's turned pro, in which he's gone 3-0 up until this point. A kickboxer that's kind of got a decent pedigree in terms of the kickboxing, but he also likes to come out and wrestle, and that's another thing that I like about his game. He can really mix in a well-rounded skill set. His last fight that he had over in the LFA impressed me. When you watch how he goes for his takedowns and his overall performance inside the cage, he's not looking to rush anything. He looks very calm in there. He looks like a guy that's been fighting for a long time, even though he is only 3-0. So obviously his long pedigree of amateur fights has served him well in terms of his experience inside the cage. He does a good job of being able to throw shots upstairs, making you bring your guard up for him to level change. He does a good job of backing you up against the fence and ultimately getting double unders or getting in the clinch, kind of throwing you to the ground, making you think about the kind of ground and pound or the shots that he's throwing in the clinch as he gets you to the ground. Once he gets on top, he's got good top pressure, and he's always looking to hurt you with ground and pound as well. I was impressed with this guy. And when you look at Ernesto, he didn't really impress me at all. It was kind of the complete opposite. This guy's been taken down. He's been controlled. And I think really, realistically, Abdellaoui, he's good on the feet. He's lightning quick on the feet. He's got a good high kick. I think wherever this fight goes, Abdellaoui is going to pretty much have whatever he wants. And I think realistically, in a guy like Ernesto, he tends to be a guy that's one shot at a time. And I think Abdellaoui is going to possess enough power, enough skill on the feet to kind of get Ernesto worried about his shots, where he can then level change, take him down, and ultimately find the finish on the ground. So 2 for Abdellaoui here to get this one done. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Kevin Cordero taking on Luciano Pereira. Carlos, who you got in this one?
This one I ended up going with Kevin Cordero. I just think it's too much height and too much reach to go against Pereira. Both have, they have some extensive fights. They got a lot of experience, but I just think that Cordero, he's fought the better opposition. He's fought a couple fights more in, I think it's Combate Global. I think they have better matchups for him. Some of the fights that I saw, they look to be a little bit more difficult to competition than someone of the level of Pereira. And Pereira, he's a little bull, just like the name says. And I just feel that he's going to be walking into some shots. And by the time he has to come in for some shots, even though he's got that low center of gravity, I think Cordero's going to be able to stuff some of these takedowns and, probably engage in the striking a little bit more, just because he's got to be able to see what's coming. The guy's 5'3". He's going to be throwing overhands. And I like the aggression from Pereira. I think he's an angry little elf, but I'm going to go with Cordero done.
Angry little elf indeed. Give me Pereira here. I love dissension here. I love taking both sides of the coin and letting you guys hear what we think about these matchups. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, as we're going to back the little elf to get this one done. Pereira, as Carlos mentioned, he's an absolute little tank. I like the way this guy fights. Very, very aggressive, heavy forward pressure, swings, with overhands. Does a good job of getting into the clinch, kind of mixing up the levels. And I think Cordero here, he wants to work out at space. He's not a guy that I think does well when he's pressured, and Pereira is all pressure. He likes to come forward. He likes to be aggressive. And I think he's going to struggle with getting the little guy off of him. And I think in this matchup here, Cordero, he does throw straight shots down the pipe. He does have decent stand-up. But I think Pereira overall, and his forward pressure and his ability to come forward and be the aggressor, is going to really stand out in the eyes of the judges. I do agree with Carlos, though. I think Cordero has definitely fought the higher level competition, that's for sure. When you watch a lot of tape on Pereira, he's fighting in these kind of, back basement style MMA cages, these small ones. You're kind of looking at it going, who are these guys that he's fighting? Maybe he's fighting cab drivers, who knows? But he looks good in there. He looks the part. I think he's very physically strong here, even at 135. And even though he is 5'3", he is only 3 inches shorter than his opponent here in Kevin Cordero. So I don't think the height and reach is going to play too much of a factor, in my opinion. He keeps a high guard. He has decent head movement as well. And I think his overall aggression here is going to lead to him either getting a takedown, getting on top and beating up Cordero, or he's going to be able to land one of those big overhands as he gets into the clinch. So give me Luciano Pereira here, the little elf, as Carlos describes him, to get it done. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Mathys Duragrin taking on Ignacio Campos, and I'm going to kick this one off here. This is an absolute dog shit of a fight. Let me just start off Aaron rant here. This is a terrible fight. In my opinion, Campos is a guy that likes to load up on his left hand. He's a guy that wants to throw pretty much one shot at a time and really just look for that straight left down the pipe. He stands southpaw. He likes to get into the clinch, but ultimately doesn't have the wrestling to get fights to the ground. Mathys is a guy that likes to get into the clinch. He likes to get into dominant positions. And I think the reason this fight's going to be very poor is we're going to have realistically two guys that want to clinch. They want to get each other to the ground. There's going to be a lot of clinch striking, a lot of low volume, and it's really just going to come down to which guy gets into a more dominant position. In my opinion, Mathys, obviously you look at the records of both of these guys, they are still very fresh in their career. Mathys is a little bit busier. He's a guy that in my opinion, that I think he's going to look to be a little bit more active, especially when it comes to doing damage and landing shots on the feet. And I think here with Campos, he's a guy that because he looks to load up on that left hand, it's really going to open up opportunities for Mathys to take this fight to the ground. Give me Mathys here to get this one done. I don't love it. I think that you could be looking at a fight here where it's just going to depend on who has the better ground game and a good ability to be able to reverse position. We saw with Campos when he fought against Ibragimov that he did do a good job being able to kind of scramble in moments, so he might be able to take the back or at least get out of terrible positions here against Mathys. But ultimately, I think Mathys' activity, his ability to look for ground and pound, his ability to kind of be more active will stand out in the judges' eyes. But again, you've got the Spaniard in Madrid as well. You never know how that could play out on the judges' scorecards. But ultimately, give me Mathys Duragrin, however you pronounce that last name, to get this one done. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Mark Ewen taking on Gino van Steenis. Carlos, who you got in this one?
In this one, I'm going to go with Van Steenis to get this one done. I think Ewing and Van Steenis are both, I think they're both very technical fighters. I think they're both good standing and on the mat. I think basically it comes down to who's physically going to be imposing in the cage, and I feel that Van Steenis is. I feel that just him, like if you think of his brother up at 85, some of the things that make him a big 85er, he's got big shoulders and a wide back. That's exactly what Van Steenis has, and it's a problem to control him, to get him to the ground. I think Ewan, if he wants to implement some ground game and take them down, I think he's going to have a little bit of an issue. And I also think that Van Steenis is the harder puncher out of the two, the harder striker. Is he the more technical? It's like they're both pretty technical, but I think Ewan's strikes actually look sharper. They come down the middle. There's not a lot of fat on it, and they don't loop. I think that Van Steenis, as the fight goes on, some of his fights, even the straights, tend to come out a little looping. So I'm going to take Van Steenis. I think he's going to bully Ewing around in the ring, and I think he's going to get it done.
Yeah, 2 for Van Steenis here. I do like Mark Ewing. I think he's a nice addition into the PFL. I think he's a decent fighter. He's very methodical in the way that he fights. He's got decent kickboxing. Everything's measured. Everything's with a purpose. I do think at times, though, he can be a little bit overwhelmed. And when you look at some of his fights, guys come out very aggressive. You know, he gets his back taken or he gets taken down and he has to kind of wake up a little bit. I don't want to call him a slow starter, but I think you can kind of pressure him a little bit and kind of get him a little bit flustered early. And I do like his overall skill set. He is nice front chokes. He's got some nice submissions and a nice ground game overall. But I think realistically here, Van Steenis is a little bit too athletic, a little bit faster than him, a little bit bigger, as Carlos mentioned. Van Steenis is a guy that utilizes kicks very well. He uses that lead oblique kick, which is an underused tool, in my opinion. Whether you love it or hate it, at the end of the day, it's still a part of the sport and it's still utilized well by Van Steenis. He does a good job of coming upstairs with the head kicks. I think he has a nice step-in jab where he really steps into it with his lead leg. And I think here, realistically, he can kind of touch Ewen on the feet with a speed advantage here that Ewan's just going to be looking to counter. And don't get me wrong, Ewen can definitely crack. He's definitely a guy that can get the finish. But I think Van Steenis can kind of overwhelm him early here on the feet. And I think if he decides to mix in some grappling, it's going to open up some opportunities here for Ewen. He has, like I mentioned, a nice dart, a nice front choke. I wouldn't be surprised here if he does pull off the upset with some sort of submission as Van Steenis gets a little bit tired here late in the second or third round. But I think if Van Steenis keeps this one on the feet, he can have a lot more success with that lead jab, mixing in some of those athletic strikes and those sort of heavy kicks, and ultimately frustrate Ewen on the feet and really just win a very clear decision in terms of the speed and athleticism that he possesses on the feet. So give me Van Steenis here to get this one done, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Ewen pulls off the upset if Van Steenis decides to mix in some grappling. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Borja Garcia taking on Rafael Calderon. Carlos, who you got in this one?
In this one, I'm going to go with Rafael Calderon. There will be a height and reach advantage on the side of Garcia, but I'm going to take the little leprechaun because I think he's just a little bit more aggressive. I think the pressure is probably going to make Garcia a little hesitant. I feel that Calderon has probably the better wrestling, and maybe it's because of the low center of gravity, but I just feel that Garcia shoots at awkward times, and his shots are from pretty far out most of the time, and I feel that Calderon can stuff him if he wants to and keep the fight on the feet. When he comes in, he's going to retaliate with some big hooks and some overhands. He's going to throw it, and he's got some solid wrestling. I feel that I feel that he can get this done. He's probably just going to end up bullying Garcia in most parts of this fight.
Yeah, two for Calderon here, in my opinion. I think this fight really just comes down to whoever is the guy moving forward. When you see Garcia fight, he is big for the weight class. In previous fights, he dropped down from 2 weight classes above. And I think he looks pretty decent in terms of his skill set. He likes submissions off of his back. He does get backed up very easy. He likes to counter in the pocket. He likes to look for exchanges that involve when his opponent is exiting the pocket. He's looking to time a right hand or a big kick upstairs. And I think a guy like Calderon here, he has the perfect skill set to be able to beat a guy like Garcia. He has measured forward pressure. He doesn't necessarily get overly aggressive, but he does a good job of keeping a nice high guard, staying fundamentally sound. He has good calf kicks. And I think realistically, his amateur experience is going to come in handy here. Both guys, obviously, you see 6-2 for their professional records, but Calderon is a guy that's had a lot of amateur experience, was able to come third in the amateur MMA competition. Is the IMMAF competition or whatever it's called, but in 2019 he looked pretty good in that. He's kind of shown a lot of experience since then, since moving into the professional ranks, and he's not a guy that tends to get overzealous, whereas with Garcia he's always looking to kind of trade. I think Calderon's technical ability here and just staying composed is going to serve him well and ultimately get him the victory here. And as I mentioned, I think it's just going to come down to which guy's moving forward. And I like Calderon's measured pressure a little bit more than I like Garcia's ability to get backed up here. So I don't like the counter striking of Garcia when you've got a guy in Calderon that's going to be moving forward. I think it's going to look bad in the eyes of the judges. So give me Rafael Calderon here to get this one done. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Franco Tenaglia taking on Yassin Najid. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Franco Tenaglia in this one. Najid wants to get his opponents to the ground, and he wants to look for submissions, but on the feet, his striking isn't very good. But he tries. He's got some very beautiful looking kicks. That Taekwondo style is, like I said, the best type of kicking style there is, and he's very effective with it. But his hands are down, and he's got terrible defense. He doesn't really bounce in and out of the pocket, but those feet come up quick. So Tenaglia is going to have to be very cautious with it. But other than that, I think if he just comes forward, I don't really think Najid's going to be able to get him down because he doesn't have the wrestling to get this fight where he wants it to be. But what he does do is he kind of smothers you and wraps his body around you as like a blanket, and he tries to get you to the ground. And without being this big, strong guy, I don't think he's going to be able to do that and just wrestle Tenaglia to the ground. I think Tenaglia is going to stuff him if he wants to, and he's just going to throw some bombs. And Najid, every once in a while, will throw some shots, but even though he's ready to throw his shots, his punches, look a little sloppy. I really don't think it's going to be a big deal if it goes to the ground too. I think Tenaglia is probably just going to maul him on the ground, hold position, and ground him out. But I think I'm taking get done.
Yeah, two for Tenaglia here. I'm not a big fan of this Taekwondo style in MMA. Obviously, the hands down low and the flashy kicks are all well and good. They're great when they land. But ultimately, I think Tenaglia here, his bare knuckle boxing experience is going to come in handy here. Corral the kicker, get on the inside and land big bombs, as Carlos mentioned. I do like the fact that Najid will try to look to get fights to the ground. I think that's probably going to be his best path to victory here against Tenaglia. Obviously, with Tenaglia, 5-2, not necessarily known for the ground game, and the submissions that he does have on his record are, kind of with a feather in his cap in terms of the level of competition. They look like absolute bums. But Najid, he can land these kicks that are flashy kicks on the outside, but once guys crash the pocket like a guy like Tenaglia, I think it's going to be night and day. It's going to be pretty much falling knockout, and it's just one of these fights where I think it's going to be one-way traffic. I hate to say it, but Najid at 40 years old, I don't necessarily trust the chin either. I don't necessarily trust the ground game that much either. We've seen him get leg locked and mix in grappling against a guy that's better on the ground than he is, and I don't trust the fight IQ. I don't like the fact that the hands are down, and I think a guy like Tenaglia is just going to swarm him early. Kind of get in his face, corral him, take away the kicks, back him up against the fence, land big shots to the body, and then come upstairs for the knockout. I think this one should be absolutely one-way traffic. Franco Tenaglia by knockout is my prediction, and I feel fairly confident in him this week. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Denis Goltsov taking on Linton Vassell, the rematch. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Goltsov again. I just feel that there's really not going to be too much different in the fight that they had, and that fight was about 2 years ago. I feel the wrestling and the ground and pound is going to be a factor again for Goltsov, and I feel that Vassell, he does use wrestling very effectively. As you saw, he was able to get him down in the first round and pretty much control Goltsov. But the issue being is he gets gassed, and when he wrestles a lot, he does slow down. He does get a little run down. And that wrestling's physical on the body. It's tough. It's taxing. And Goltsov, it's kind of I think he just moves a little smoother on the ground, and he's able to transition better, especially in top position. And that's a little bit too much for Vassell. He wants to get back to his feet, but with the position changes, he's putting weight in different angles. It's a little tough for Vassell to know exactly where and when to explode to get back to his feet. And when he does, Goltsov's throwing some bombs. So I'm going to take Goltsov to get it done. I think it's going to go the same way.
Yeah, I agree. I see it the exact same way. The only difference is I think Goltsov probably gets a finish this time around. Linton Vassell is a very good athlete, even for the age of 42, but as Carlos mentioned, he does tend to slow down in fights. And I think a grimy, heavy wrestling pace that Goltsov can push, with a 6'5" guy on top of you, beating you up with elbows and just kind of riding you from position to position is going to wear you down and take away a lot of that explosivity that Vassell has early. Linton Vassell is a guy that in round one, he can definitely get takedowns. You saw that in the first fight. And he's definitely a guy that can catch you on the feet. But I think Goltsov here, I think he takes the fight to Vassell early. I think he just kind of, even if he gets him up against the fence, backs him up, gets in the clinch, wears on his arms, kind of makes the fight very gritty early, takes some of that power away from Vassell, and then ultimately gets the takedowns late in the first or in the second here. I think he can definitely land some heavy ground and pound on a tired Vassell, beat him up, get the finish this time around. And there was a lot of criticism in that first fight that from the referee that they could have arguably stopped it in previous parts in that fight for Goltsov to get the finish, but Vassell looked good early. I think Goltsov takes over here from start to finish as long as it lasts, and I'm going to say Goltsov gets a finish inside 1 or 2 rounds here, probably by ground and pound as Vassell gets tired and he gets beaten up on the ground. And next up at PFL Madrid, we've got Accordion Duque taking on Alexander Shabliy. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm gonna go with Shabliy to get this one done. And Duque, at 39 years old, he looks good. It actually looks like he's gotten better. He's improved when I look to see some of his past fights, and it looks like he's kind of put it together as best that he can. But you're going up against Shabliy. Shabliy's he's in his prime. He looks strong. He's got good takedown defense. If he knows you're hurt, he's a good finisher. He's light on his feet, can move in and out. Good defensively, very solid. And a lot of the top guys in the division, they don't want to stand and trade with him either. He's a problem for them. And the next result is take him to the ground. Well, I don't think Duque is going to be able to take him to the ground. I don't think he's going to be able to stand with him. And I just feel that, 39 years old, he's probably slowing down just a little bit. Shabliy's looking good. And I just feel that, if Shabliy is going to do this, Shabliy's going to have to use that in and out movement, stay off the cage, and avoid going to the ground. But even if he does go to the ground, I feel that Shabliy can easily get back up. I think the only guy that was able to get him down and actually hold him down was Usman Nurmagomedov, and Usman had a hard time taking down Shabliy as well. So I'm gonna take Shabliy. I really don't see. I don't really see a way that Duque could actually best him. Like athletically, Shabliy's a lot smoother. He's a lot lighter on his feet. He's got a very good 1-2. I don't see how Duque is going to get it done. So let's get it done, Shabliy.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself, to be honest with you. Short breakdown from me here. I agree with Carlos in every single sentiment that he just said. I think Duque has got to get this one to the ground, and if he can't, that's pretty much all she wrote. I think Shabliy on the feet, is much more technical. I think he plants his feet in the middle of the octagon here, and he just kind of picks his shots, looks to counter. And I think Duque is going to get desperate and, kind of shoot in for desperate takedowns or wing overhands to get into a single leg. And I just think Shabliy stuffs a lot of these takedowns and ultimately wins it with the striking. You've seen that he can go 5 rounds. You've seen he's got an ability to, if he wants to push a pace, he can. But I think he's just too well-rounded here for a guy like Duque. Duque's striking is not a guy that I look to kind of, I'm not overly impressed with it. He can land the big bomb, obviously, but at the same time, I think Shably's kickboxing is going to be too much. Fight on the outside here, pepper him with kicks, kind of just land that jab, don't overextend. I think Shabliy should win this one easily, and I think if it does end up going into the clinch or getting into some wrestling exchanges, Duque is a guy that could definitely pull off a submission, but Shabliy has grappling of his own. If he's a Sambo background, I think he can definitely stuff these takedowns, keep it on the feet, and ultimately win this one with the striking. And now for the co-main event here at PFL Madrid, we've got Adam Boric taking on AJ McKee. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, as Carlos is going to break this one down for you.
I'm going to go with AJ McKee to get this one. I like Boric. He's just a little. I think he's a little bit more technical than McKee. For someone so quick, he looks a lot slower when moving because he likes to plant his feet when he's striking. And that's also why he gets off some heavy shots. So I feel that he's probably going to be the more powerful striker of the two. I think that McKee's a little bit looser in his movement. He's got the quicker strikes. He's a little bit more elusive when he feels like it. And he mixes in his takedowns and he times them pretty good when he's ready to do it. You know what I mean? Like when he's ready to let that guy commit, he's got good timing on the takedown. And I would assume that Boric, he struggles off of his back most of the time. And against somebody like McKee, I think he is going to struggle. McKee's going to try to control him once he gets down there. And we'll probably just be busy, stay busy with the strikes, and just to keep, Boric distracted. And I think that'll make Boric just a little bit more hesitant on the feet. Or in some cases, like we've seen in the past, he's a little bit more likely to make a mistake as he's trying to attack first against someone who's ready to take him down. And sometimes he's got very good success when he gets off first. I mean, if that's what it is and you're hesitant on getting taken down, why not go first and try to land a big bomb? And he's got the power to do it. So I just feel that McKee's just a little bit too loose, a little bit too hard to hit. And you're going to have to time it perfectly when he darts in. And I don't know if Boris could do that because he might just be waiting for the takedown. So I do think this is going to be a little closer than most people feel it's going to be. But I'm going to take McKee. I think that just mixing the takedowns in with the striking and the quick 1-2s, I think that's going to confuse Boric, and he's not going to know what attack is coming, and he's probably going to get the best of him, forcing Boric to probably have to defend a lot on the ground and try to get back to his feet.
Yeah, I'm glad you said you think this one's going to be a lot closer than maybe people think, and I'm actually going to take Boric here, my Hungarian homie. I'm a big fan of AJ McKee. I like him. I think he's a good fighter, and I do agree. Carlos said it best. I think he's very elusive, nice ground game, good top pressure. But I think on the feet, I give Boric the edge here, and I think he does a good job of timing knees up the middle. I think that's going to be a great weapon for him to use against a guy in AJ McKee that we know is going to be looking for the takedowns. And I think if this one plays out on the feet and Boric can keep it standing long enough, I think he can definitely find enough strikes on the feet to be able to hurt AJ McKee, make those takedowns difficult, and ultimately win a decision or get a knockout here. I think Boric is a guy that, and I do agree in Carlos saying that he struggles off of his back, but I think that he can do a good enough job here to being able to get back to his feet, not give up his back and get his back taken and choked here. I think this one plays out in the middle of the octagon. He uses his footwork well, and I think he's going to be able to circle out and ultimately win this one in a straight-up kickboxing match. AJ McKee is a good athlete, but I think on the feet, he tends to struggle. If you hurt him on the feet or you kind of just have a back-and-forth striking affair with him and he's looking to take you down, if he can't back you up and kind of shoot at your legs when you're up against the fence, I think he struggles. If the fight plays out in the middle of the octagon where Boric can use his footwork, circle, I think he is the much better striker. I think he can look to counter, kind of take advantage of the striking advantage that he's going to have. And I don't necessarily trust AJ McKee. You see in one of his previous fights where he fought against Paul Hughes, when he was able to keep that one standing and hurt him, even if it was in the clinch, which I think Boric does a good job of using elbows and knees in the clinch, he tended to struggle in that fight as well. So give me Adam Boric, keeping this one standing. If AJ does get it to the ground and he's able to beat him up early in the first round, then all bets are off. But I'm going to go with my Hungarian homie here to get this one done. And that brings us to the main event here for PFL Madrid. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as Carlos lets you know who he's got in this main event. We've got Fabian Edwards taking on Costello Van Steenis. Carlos, who you got?
I'm gonna take Van Steenis. Just like I said about the last one, this is a tough matchup because you can argue that Fabian Edwards won the first fight between them, but Van Steenis got the nod. But both of them in that particular fight, it was a very low volume affair. Both gave a lot of respect to each other. Defensively, obviously, they did good when you're only blocking one strike at a time, and it's easy to see it coming, especially at their level where they're at. I want to take Van Steenis in this one because I feel like you just won a title. He's on a very big high. He beat Johnny Eblen. People believe Johnny Eblen is one of the best in the world, and the way that he won, he didn't just squeak out a decision or something. He won convincingly, choking him. And, that is going to make you better. You're going to get a bit of a better rub. But me and you talking about it before that particular fight, we figured that Van Steenis had the rub already. So I don't know how much better he's going to get from that fight. And Fabian Edwards coming off winning the tournament, he's got a lot of confidence too going into this one. So in this one, it's all going to come down to who's willing to take the bigger chances. Who's going to leave themselves open for counters, because they didn't do that in that first fight. And I just feel that Costello's going to fight a little bit angrier. Whatever you saw in that Eblen fight, he's going to bring it into this one. And he's going to try to make it a little bit nastier now. I think that Fabian could get the better of some of the exchanges, and I feel that Costello's just going to bite down because that's the success he had against Eblen, and he's going to bring that into this, and he's going to bite down and just pick up the pace and go a little bit harder against Edwards. And this is not saying that Edwards can't give him problems. The problems is that Edwards is just as big as Van Steenis is, so that's why the respect is there. They both know they have that respect between them, but I feel that Costello carries a little bit more of the power in the hands as well as the feet, whereas I think Edwards, it favors him with the legs. His kicks are very hard. So I'm going to go with Van Steenis, and I feel that he's the one that's going to pressure a little bit more on the feet. And when it comes to the clinch and the grappling exchanges, I'm going to favor Van Steenis as well. I think that if it gets down to the ground, I feel that Van Steenis has the better grappling. And I feel in the clinch, Van Steenis is going to throw those knees and, probably just outwork Fabian, like try to throw a little bit more volume. So hopefully I'm right on that one, but I'm going to take Van Steenis. I think he's going to come a little bit more confident and a little bit more fired up, and he's going to want to get it done.
I'm going with Fabian Edwards, man. I think you can make a great case for both of these guys, and I'm looking forward to this main event. I think this is a great PFL main event here, and I think it could go either way. The reason I'm going with Edwards here is just my one criticism of his has always been that guys want to look to take him down when they stand there on the feet. They get their legs chewed up. He lands shots in the clinch. He's got good kicks, good kickboxing, good footwork, but obviously guys want to take him down. They want to beat him up. They want to, grapple him because they're losing on the feet to him. And in the first fight between these two, I should say, and in previous fights of Fabian Edwards, guys have got him up against the fence, and he's always looked to stay in the clinch. And that's kind of been my one criticism here because, as Carlos did mention, Van Steenis is dangerous in the clinch. He is looking for takedowns. He has good submissions. He has good knees. And I think that's a place where Van Steenis can definitely wear on the gas tank of Edwards, along with, landing big shots or getting in grappling exchanges where he is able to find a submission. But Edwards always seems to want to prove that he can grapple. He always wants to. He's like his brother. I was saying this to Carlos earlier, that both the Edwards brothers want to show that they can grapple instead of just sticking to what they're good at. And I think in this one, if he just kind of keeps it at range, kind of has a little bit more volume compared to the first fight, I think he can get Van Steenis out of here. And I think when you look at that first fight, both guys, they had respect for each other on the feet. They were throwing one shot at a time, looking to counter, kind of minding their P's and Q's. And I think Edwards can really make some changes, in this rematch. And I think realistically, Van Steenis is going to look to grapple here. And I think Edwards just needs to, kind of circle out, keep this one in the middle of the octagon, and land, kind of in combination, put something behind the jab, kind of end shots with low kicks, throw in combination here just to kind of, get Van Steenis, worried about multiple shots as opposed to one at a time. I think now that he's got a feel for Van Steenis here, he's going to be able to put a better game plan together on the feet. My only worry here is that he stays in the clinch and ultimately gets taken down, like you saw in the first fight. That was where it kind of got a little bit greasy when Steenis was able to get on top, control him for rounds, and beat him up. Stay out of the clinch, keep this one out at space, Fabian Edwards, and I think you'll be able to get the win here in terms of the main event here for PFL Madrid. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, and Carlos is going to let you know what you need to do if you enjoy the content.
Guys, if you enjoy the content, and we hope you do, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.
We'll see you on the next one, people. Peace.
Peace.